Assalamu alaikum and good morning, everyone. First of all, I will request everyone to mute themselves because it is in recording, so everyone can hear it. Thank you very much. Very welcome, and thank you all for attending this webinar. This is in a series of webinar run by PAPANA, Psychiatric Association of North America. My name is Fauzia Arain, and I am a second year child and adolescent psychiatry fellow at Bronxcare Hospital, New York. Today, we are conducting this webinar on the topic of abstract writing under our academic council. So this is the first webinar in this regard. We will be continuing this activity to help our applicants do more research activities. Now, today the topic of our webinar is how to write an abstract. We have been receiving many questions regarding abstract writing. So I thank Dr. Shad, who graciously put on this idea that let's do a webinar and give the tips, and then we can answer the questions of applicants. So I would like to invite Dr. Shad, Dr. Mujeeb Shad, Adjunct Professor of Psychiatry and Residency Director at the Touro University of Nevada and the University of Nevada, Las Vegas. He will take you step by step through the tips of writing a good abstract. And if you follow these abstract, I can assure you can submit it in the upcoming APA conference. He's a well-renowned and academic and research psychiatrist. He has published over 80 publications, including book chapters, have extensive experience in research. These are not including abstracts. So he has written many abstracts. He has presented many workshops and posters at national and international conferences and published various articles and book chapters in the field of psychiatry. Welcome, Dr. Shad.
Thank you. Fauzia, can I think you need to allow me to share my screen.
Yes, please.
Yeah, it is disabled right now. Yeah. Yeah, I can share now. Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. Zishan, Asif, thank you for joining this session. I think you can provide your valuable feedbacks as well, because you're also quite experienced. So I think we need to begin the presentation because 1 hour is not enough for this presentation. There's a lot of things which we need to discuss. But I think we'll continue this series and would like to be more do more elaborative presentations in future. We are not even talking about posters today, but I think Dr. Arain is planning to do a session on that as well. So I'm going to present today the secrets of writing an impressive abstract, not just an abstract, but an impressive abstract, because you know, a lot of people write abstracts, and I have reviewed hundreds and hundreds of them. But you know, if you're talking about the quality of the abstract, because the abstract is probably one of the most difficult item of any document, any review paper or research paper or a poster, regardless of for which reason you're writing the abstract. It is actually the most difficult, and so we'll go through those issues one by one. So let's begin. So these are the objectives. There are a lot of them, so I don't know whether I'll be able purpose. What is the reason for writing an abstract? Who reads it? Who reads it? Because that is extremely important. That you need to know your audience, your attendees, and the people who read scholarly articles in the journals. So everything, you need to consider, where is it going? What are the different types of abstracts? And a lot of you may already have some ideas about the different type of abstracts. And the question is what to include in an abstract, and what are the subheadings of an abstract. And that is something which we are going to go a little bit in more in detail, because that is the heart of an abstract. Um, and what are the things you are not going to include in an abstract? Um, and if we have time, we can talk a little bit about how to do a literature search. But I think it's a lecture by itself, how to do a lit search. And I'll give you some samples from some of my recent publications, because I thought for a while that if I can present some of the abstracts which were presented to me for reviewing, but I think it probably, maybe politically incorrect. But my belief is that, critique is never, if it is healthy, it is always for the good of the applicants and the trainees. So let's begin. So basically, writing writing is important. And this was many decades back. One of the famous scholar, Mr. Bacon, actually said that reading maketh a full man. Conference makes a ready man, but writing makes an exact man. So I think that those few lines are very meaningful for people who understand why writing is so important. Why do you bother to write? You want to communicate your work. You want to showcase your work. You want to people to realize what you have done through your hard work and dedication and motivation, and investing so much time from your busy schedule, right? The reasons for not writing. Yeah. So there's a lot of reluctance uh, among trainees and other people that uh, that they think that writing is so difficult, especially they struggle with where to start. And the reason that problem arises in most of the time, in my experience, is that if you read an article or a review paper or a meta-analysis, and if you don't think about what are the implications, practical, clinical, and research implications of that document you read, you are not going to develop ideas. You have to be involved in scholarly activities, reading reviews, reading book chapters, reading research papers, reading meta-analysis, and so forth, and posters. Actually, going to the live posters is one of the best teaching experience you can ever have. So that is the reason why it's difficult where to start. First, you need to identify your area of interest, and so we'll talk about that. Not knowing how to start, I just discussed that. Anxiety about writing skills. Um, yeah, I think the biggest anxiety I used to have early in my career was that, um, how is my writing going to be reviewed by my supervisor? Would you think I'm stupid? Would you think that what am I doing? I'm crazy. Um, and so if you're not willing to accept critique, as I was saying earlier, you won't develop the confidence and self-esteem to write. So that is a very important thing. You have to overcome your own fears, and you have to develop this motivation that and be ready for criticism, because criticism is an essence of somebody improving in their skills, provided that it is positive and constructive. Lack of confidence, so we address all those. So those are some of the reasons. But before we start talking about the abstract, what is the difference? Does anybody know what is the difference between abstract and an abstract? That is a little bit philosophical level, but not that much. Actually, it's very important to know the difference between the two. So the abstract is something which is actually used in hundreds and thousands of different ways. it is a meaning of a Latin word, which actually says that it means pulled away or detached. Fascinating, isn't it? So how, the first message to get from that is abstract is sitting by itself. It has no help. It has no support. In 250 words, you have to make your message clear. And that is why, and I'll keep repeating this, abstract is not an easy thing to do. You think it's easy? So in 250 words, you have no other context. Generally, you don't use any references, right? For some reason, I got disconnected. Let me.
We can hear you now.
Yeah, but I think I
Yes,
got
yes, no problem, no
disconnected.
problem,
Yeah,
no
yeah,
problem.
yeah. Okay, let me. Let me bring up the slides back again. Hold on. Can you see the slides now? Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Okay. Okay. Let me move on. Sorry about
Yes,
that interruption.
no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, uh, abstract can be used in art field, like for example, a painting, abstract painting. Everybody knows that. It is also used as a noun. For example, um, I loved her in abstract, but not in person. For example, right? It can be used as a verb. Let's abstract away from this particular example. Let's move away from this example, for example, right? As an adjective, a large abstract painting. And most importantly for psychiatrists, it is used as a higher order cognitive function. And anybody who has done mental status examination, they know the importance of testing abstract. It is one of the most important aspects of testing the cognitive function, the higher order, or in some other words, the executive functions of the brain, higher cortical function. So abstract is all over the place. But the abstract we are talking about, we are referring to today is an abstract, uh, which actually is used for the reasons which we are going to discuss today, right? Um, so basically, the abstract which we are talking about is a very crisp, very clear synopsis of the research you have done. If you're writing a research paper, that is. If you're writing a review, it is reflection of your hard work in reviewing the literature and making sense out of it and criticizing it, right? If that is the goal. Meta-analyses and the posters, as we discussed earlier, it is actually submitted, all of you know this very well, before the poster approval. So the abstract actually is so important that it decides whether you are going to get the privilege of presenting a poster or getting an article published for that reason, because the reviewers first look at the abstract, and if they don't like it, they write a bit, send you an email that your paper is not quote unquote worthy of publication in their reputable journal, right? And I've gone through that so many times. And if I was sensitive, I've been rejected so many times that I will stop working, stop writing. But that is something you can never give up. Okay. Um, so it can be online or in print. For example, when the abstract book is published by, for example, American Psychiatric Association meetings and others, they actually publish these abstracts in their books, which are given at the time of the registration. Nowadays, I think mostly they are online, because they want to save the paper, and that's cost effective as well. And then you pay attention to the guidelines and the instructions. And most of you would know that how important that is. An abstract can also be a condensed version of a full scientific paper. For example, if you want to submit a letter of intent for research funding, you can create a one-page document crystallizing your thoughts on a piece of, on one page of paper, and then send it. And that actually, you can imagine how important that is, because if you're not approved for a full submission of a full research application, all your effort is gone, and you have to move on, right? The limit is usually 150 to 250. I think the APA has been a little bit more flexible, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, they have given a character limit of 3,000, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, and so it's pretty tricky. APA, I was just reviewing some of the abstracts for APA. It seems like APA has a little bit more space, and you can express yourself a little bit more easily. Let's move on. So we continue on what is abstract. It is a document to reflect your beginning of your research career. I remember when I started my research career in residency, I used to get so excited about presenting posters, and I'm still continue to, but that was something a little different, because the youth and the interest and motivation actually changes the flavor a little bit. But I remember that at those times things were not that easy. You have to actually use. You still had PowerPoint at that time, but it was very kind of primitive. And you have to create the poster, then you have to send it to a printer company who can print such a large piece of document. And then you have to take it, carry it in your I think some people still do that. So that was a little bit more cumbersome at that time. Things have really become so easy these days. Of course, it improves your CV. Any abstract you present or a poster, and you add it to your bibliography, it adds to your CV, and a lot of applicants actually are interested in doing this, because obviously it will increase their chances for interview, and rightfully so. And we are glad that we are helping them in any way which we can. A better job, get into residency, as I just discussed. Visibility among colleagues, very important. When you present a poster at a meeting, you meet so many people who actually may know you, and it creates it creates links, it creates contacts, it creates it gives you the opportunity to meet with people who are doing the same kind of research, or even different kind of research, and bring different ideas and give you some feedback. And so you learn so much from poster presentation. It's unbelievable, and you make friends. So the font size, this is actually important to realize that there are some rules and guidelines which actually enhance your poster. So the font size is different from the main text for the abstract, because you want to showcase your abstract a little bit differently. It is not a requirement, but I think it's a good idea, so that the abstract stands out in your poster. Not a compulsory thing to do, but maybe a good idea. Um, so the first part of the paper, or the or published of a paper, or published document, I guess I missed that, as such, in journal or online, because when you read a research paper or a review paper or any other paper, this is the first thing you read. As a matter of fact, a lot of you don't even read the abstract completely. You go to the conclusion and start believing everything which the study says, and that is not something which I can agree with. But that's how I used to do that when I was at your level as well. So I'm not criticizing. I went through the same stages. So again, it is a standalone document, and you cannot afford to have vague statements, because you're going to lose the interest of the reader, and they are not going to proceed further in your document. No references unless if they are allowed. I just learned that the AP has allowed 3 references, I think, if I'm not mistaken. But abstracts is an abstract. It does not have much concrete in it, and references add concreteness to it in some ways. If you know if I'm making any sense, or do you see? But if you know what I'm trying to say, okay. The parts of the so these are the different parts of the poster. I'm not going to spend time on this. I'm just showing where the abstract location usually conventionally is on the poster. Who writes it? Of course, the laborer, the one who labors day and night to do the legwork, review the articles, review the papers, trying to gather or synthesize all the data, crystallize the thought, prepare the introduction and the background and the reason for the poster, and then go through the different subheadings, and we will discuss that later. But just the one who does all the work. Why? Because that is the person most knowledgeable. Um, and I think that is going to lay the foundation for you to convince the reader to read the whole text, or come to your poster presentation and ask you questions, because they may become interested looking just at the abstract, or looking at the title. So title is another thing. We'll discuss that later. You want to respond to a call, that is another very important call for abstract for a meeting, and you want to make it possible for your paper to be indexed in search engines, because when you go and do literature search, a lot of times you only have access to the abstract, because a full document, you have to be a subscriber for the journal a lot of times, although some university libraries make that job easier. So let's move on. So these are the people you are going to present to. So I'm going to skip this. Different types of poster. The posters vary based on the discipline and requirements of the journal. Please remember, if you remember anything before you start your work, read about the requirements of the particular meeting or the journal or whatever you are writing the abstract for. You need to be very careful. You know, for example, in one of the abstracts which I reviewed, I was criticizing some of the abstracts for not having a discussion section. But later I was told that the discussion section was not the part of the recommended subheadings. So yeah, so those are very important things. The first thing actually you want to do before you start your work: word count. Always remember that. Font size, we discussed that. Spacing, references, only if allowed. So abstract can also be described in 2 different ways. Abstracts can be descriptive and they can be informative. There's not much difference between the two, except that let me discuss the first the common things. Of course, they both talk about what the text is all about. and what is the issue or problem you are exploring and trying to write on. And of course, the purpose and methodology of the abstract. The descriptive differs from informative in one important factor, at least, which is that descriptive abstracts are written before the project is complete. For example, if you are doing a study and you contemplate that the results of the study, or you think that you will be able to finish the study before the meeting, you just submit a descriptive abstract about your study, your design, and what are your hypotheses, and what you want to communicate, and just clearly say the results will be presented in the poster at the final meeting. So that is one. I have done that in the past. You can do that. Informative abstracts are actually after the project is completed, and that is why they are required to have results, conclusions, and recommendations. So it's pretty common sense, right?
Dr. Shad, your screen is again just struck. I think there is bad connection. Yeah. Please unmute yourself, Dr. Shad. Unmute. No, please unmute. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, that thing is not appearing on my screen, so I had to look for it anyway. So yeah, Google, you will be surprised how many different styles and abstracts you are going to come across, and then you develop your own style and you learn your own skills, and learn how different kind of abstracts are written. Don't take it easy. Again, I'm repeating it. Don't take it easy. Writing an abstract requires a lot of work, as we discussed and we continue to discuss in this presentation. Also, I think there are some requirements to write an abstract, um, an impressive abstract in that sense, especially. You need to learn how to do a lit search. You will be surprised how many people just don't know how to do insert the search terminologies and the keywords, and find the articles, and don't miss any significant article on the topic you're working on. Know the terms, use them efficiently. For example, during our and I have seen this all my life, but during supervising our applicants to write the abstract for other meetings, I actually was told that sometimes there were thousands of articles, and so it's seemingly impossible to review all those, right? So you
Yes.
have to narrow down your terminologies, and you have to narrow down the search, the terminologies, so that you can have a more concise and more feasible and doable project at your hand. So those are very important things. Okay,
Dr.
let
Shad,
me go to the
can
next.
you, yeah,
Yeah.
Dr. Shad, we cannot see your slides. Can you please again reload the slides? There is something wrong with the
Okay. I
connection. It's okay. It's okay. Just
Yeah.
take your
Okay.
time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Let me share the screen again. Can you see it now?
Yes, please. Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Again, these are the things I have talked about. But remember, the abstract needs to be crisp, needs to be clear, without any confusing or vague terminologies used. Um, Today there are having problems. Okay. um, and then try to use Microsoft. I am from that age group where we are used to Microsoft, and we prefer to communicate in the Microsoft documents. But the young generation is so skillful in using the Google sheets and Google documents, because they are used to communicate
We cannot hear again. Dr. Shad, we cannot hear you.
this is causing some issues today. I'm sorry about that. Yeah.
Please share your slides again. No problem.
Uh, Professor Shad, we cannot hear you. Please unmute your mic.
Yeah, every time it disconnects, it mutes. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No issues.
Okay. So yeah. So let's. Can you see my slides?
No,
No?
we cannot.
Okay. Let me share the screen again. Um, can you see it now?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. So I think every time I disconnect, I have to restart the slides.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically, um, um, I was talking about how the leader of a treatment team can work, and that worked quite efficiently. But this is not something in relation to me or Dr. Arain, who were actively helping other applicants, but future references, because we are part of the team, and I don't have a big ego that I can be that can be impacted by little things, as kind of and what sequence you have been put as an author, or and who is getting the final review done. So for future reference, I think always remember that there's no harm in getting more reviews and more critique on your abstracts or writings or whatever the case may be. But I think it's very important that you know the hierarchy of how one should work. And I'm not, again, please remember that I'm not complaining. This is for your future kind of career development. You have to be really careful about those things, because these minor things, you never know what kind of mentor and supervisor you are going to get. And I think that is mostly it. So let's go to the next slide. What to include? So without any other discussion, let's go to the subheadings, because we don't have the time, so we'll try to hurry a little bit. So the abstract sections, as you all know, and have done a lot of these, most of you have done a lot of these abstracts now. Of course, the title, and then the introduction, and the methods, and the materials, and the results, and conclusions, or if there is a requirement for discussion, as I have seen in the past. Whatever the case may be, look at the requirements, and the conclusion should be very, very brief, within 1 to 2 sentences. And the introduction should also be not that big, because there's a word requirement, how easily you can cross that. Results can be a little bit more lengthy than the other sections. So let's move on. There may be additional sections required based on which meeting or which journal you are submitting for to. The title. The title actually is the heart. Abstract is the heart of a poster and a journal, or or a paper. But title is the heart of the abstract, even the poster as a whole, right? So title should reflect your work, and it should be attractive and eye-catching, because there are hundreds and thousands of posters and big meetings, right? And people are not going to be interested in looking at every poster. But your poster title should be so attractive that they cannot help but to stop and look at the poster and speak to you. You can, I remember from my experience how beautiful it is for somebody to come and stop at your poster and validate your hard work, and ask you a question, and it is so confidence building, and it is so good for the self-esteem, and it gives you a lot of pleasure. At least I have those experiences. Title should be as brief as possible, but it should reflect your work. So it should not be any less or any more than required. It should be clear, and you need to know what are the keywords in the area you have done work in. Don't make it lengthy, and this actually experience comes with some experience, and with some work in the past. Sometimes I still struggle, what could be a catchy title, even at this stage of my career, because I've worked several years in this, in terms of writing abstracts and posters, right? But it is not easy. Get some help. More than 2 set of eyes is always going to be helpful. Introduction, 1 to 2 paragraphs. Don't have to tell the whole story. Just create the existing nature of the literature, state of the literature. Talk about what are the gaps, what are the deficiencies, and that is the reason why you're doing this, and what are you planning to do. Introduce research question and hypothesis, that if this is a research study. So introduction, 1 paragraph mostly, but if you think that the result section can allow you to have a little bit more, then you can add maybe another small paragraph, but not more than that. Attract the audience, concise. There is a bad example here. the important role of developmental, environmental, and genetic risk factors in the etiology of schizophrenia. So the question to the audience would be, if this was an interactive session, and we actually worked on this title during when I was reviewing abstracts for the applicants, what would be the better example? Easy. Biopsychosocial risk factors in schizophrenia. You see how beautiful and nice and explanatory and easy to read that is. So just to give you an example, the title is extremely important. Yeah, so we'll skip this for the sake of time. Methods. Describe the search criteria, and I think we've gone through that in many abstracts which we wrote in the past few weeks and days. The search engines, you have to use the ones which are reliable and used by majority. Eligibility criteria, there can be a duration criteria based on your question and your topic. As some of you realized that I didn't agree with such duration criteria in one case at least. So you can imagine that can vary between abstract to abstract. Original research versus reviews, you have to establish your eligibility criteria for all those. The scientific language, the terminologies you use and you put them in your methods is I've shown an example here. That is how this is probably the conventional way of doing this. Yeah. Results. First, you have to create a table of relevant studies. Remember, during my supervision with you, some of you guys who are attending this webinar, who have worked with me, I always ask about creating a table of the studies which you find eligible and you want to review. You cannot imagine how helpful a table is unless you start working on it and then first create the table, then start writing the paper. That will be my very sincere advice, and you cannot imagine how helpful that is going to be. In a poster, not in the abstract, use figures and tables that look good to attract attention, because remember, people don't have time. They have to stop for 5 minutes or maybe less than that on posters they like. Not every poster, right? So you have to be really, really careful that you create something which actually attracts them and seems interesting. Visually, it should be very pleasant. Visual attraction and the visual memory is much more than the verbal memory. So that is another reason why to do this. Okay, so yeah, then may not be possible to elaborate this in the abstract, but try to link the results and the research question, obviously, because that is why we are doing this. And this is for the poster. I apologize. Tables and figures should not be here. Conclusions. So conclusions should be, again, very crisp, very concise, very clear, a couple of lines at best. And in a poster, if you want to do it, bullet points actually are preferred. When you do the whole poster, at the end of the poster, you can do that. In the abstract, you don't have to do the bullet points. Yeah, so those are the things, and we discussed that. Future steps, if you have a luxury of a few words, it is always nice that where do you want the research to move, in which direction. That might be helpful. Acknowledgements only in the poster, unless there is some space for it in the submission website. And basically very a few words about who helped you, who provided you, who are the lab members, if you're a research lab, who are the mentors. So that will be nice. But if their name is already in the authors of the abstract or poster, then you don't have to. So there are 4 C's you can remember. And I got this from another set of slides I was reviewing. And these 4 C's are probably will guide you in another way of guiding you. Abstract should be complete. It should be concise. It should be clear, and it should be cohesive. It should not be you're talking about north and then you're talking about south. No, it is just disjointed, and it creates confusion. You really have to link every line of the abstract, like you will put the pearls to make a necklace or ornament. I think the the women will understand this example much better than the males, I guess. Yeah. So I think these are the 4 C's you have to be mindful of. Basically, the questions you are going to answer in the abstract, another way of putting it. So I wanted to find different ways, anything which appeals to you and makes sense to you. What the author did, how the author did it, what the author found, what the author concluded. Isn't that the gist of the message in the abstract? And that's all. If you follow this guideline, you are going to do reasonably well, I think. But not to include something which is not related to the your topic, obviously. References not allowed unless they are allowed, like for APA I just mentioned. Lengthy explanations not affordable. You have word limit. You don't have luxury of using more than usually 250 words or whatever characters are allowed. Acronyms or abbreviations without the explanation is a disaster, because a lot of posters I've seen, they start with the acronym without explaining what it is, and I'm standing there at the poster trying to find the author, because sometimes they are not always available at the poster. What does that mean? No tables or figures. Search engines, I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, because I want to leave some. So literature search, this probably will be the last slide, because I want to leave a lot of time for question and answers, and we can continue some of these presentations later. But for now, I think this should be good enough for this one. How to do a lit search? Select a topic. Of course, that is the first step, right? Recognize and define the problem. You have identified the problem. You recognize that problem is relevant to your patient care, your management, quality of life, other outcomes, or research in terms of neurobiological underpinnings of psychiatric illnesses or genetics, whatever the case may be. Recognize the problem and define the problem in the background section, mostly from the based on your lit search, right? What are the tools you want to develop for argumentation? You have to create a process to problem solve, and that process involves evidence-based findings and results, and logical reasoning. For example, we were writing this poster, and we were talking about beyond monoamines in the treatment of depression. So reviewed a lot of papers and everything, right? So now, based on that review, you found that monoamines are not generally do not provide a comprehensive treatment of major depressive disorder, which could address not only the depressive symptoms, but also the cognitive symptoms and neurophysiological symptoms and so forth, right? So built on that, you identified the problem, and then you look at the evidence for the alternative treatments, for the novel mechanism of action drugs, or the new concepts, to write your abstract, and then you find, oh, ketamine, NMD antagonist. However, the emerging evidence supports that ketamine or esketamine intranasally administered might be more effective in treating a major depressive disorder, and might be more on long-term basis, may be more tolerable than the currently used antidepressants. So something like that. So you have to you have to create a process. I have to identify the problem, and you have to show the evidence and logical reasoning behind it. So that's the literature focus should focus on. And then search the literature. First, you have identified the problem. You are trying to build evidence for logical reasoning to support your abstract, and then you actually conduct the search, literature search. You survey the literature, and you draw your conclusions, and then you write the review and communicate and evaluate the conclusion. So that's basically very simple, straightforward. So I think I will stop here. We don't have much time. So if there are any questions, Dr. Arain, Fauzia, is that okay to stop here?
Yes,
Because I
yes,
have
yes,
more
yes.
slides. Yeah, okay.
Okay, thank you so much for this detailed overview on abstract writing. It was a very comprehensive presentation. Thank you very much, and thank you very much all for joining in. I would like to invite Dr. Asif Khan if he can come and give his feedback. That will be very helpful for us.
Thank
Dr.
you,
Asif
Dr.
Khan? Yeah, yes.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Arain. No, it was a wonderful presentation. Thank you, Dr. Shad. And I think you it's a very big topic, as you mentioned, and takes a lot of maybe more hours to, explain and also streamline the concepts, but you summed it up pretty well in a very short time. So thank you for doing that.
Thank you, Asif. Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think, based on the excellent, content that you had, I do not have much to add more, but I would like for all the applicants to also note the importance of reviewing as many abstracts as you can. For example, you're going to these conferences, or if they are virtual, they have this section of poster, reviews. And when I was a student and a trainee, I learned a great deal from just stopping by at various posters when they would be displayed at various conferences like APA, AAGP, and others. And I would learn a great deal. I would learn a lot of good things because there's so many good work out there, right? So these are the key things that while we're in a process of learning, we have to keep in mind. There's no harm in kind of asking for, if you are going for a conference and you stop by at hall where we have a lot of posters on display, you can ask the poster author to give you that little PDF of their poster. When I used to present as a trainee, I would make color PDFs like these letter size, and distribute it to all the people who would stop by at my posters. And these are some passive ways of learning and streamlining your own skills as you go on to write your own abstracts. Lastly, one last comment I would like to make is, abstract is the nutshell of your idea and work, and it's an art and it's a skill. So don't be afraid, don't be shy of making mistakes. Write a draft, review it again, right? And based on the research background that I have, every morning that I would review my grant application or any kind of abstract, every morning, I would find something new or something missing, in my own write-up, right? So at night, I would finish it, hey, that's final, right? And then next morning, I would wake up and go through this again, and I will see and find some minor tweaks that I can do. So review it again and again, have your colleagues review it. And it's process, never be afraid of starting it, and very constructively. Take the feedbacks very constructively. No one that gives you feedback. For example, when my residents send me their work for review, I send them an email with, hey, this is what I think, in my opinion, would be something that you may want to think about and write up. I'm doing these track change and what you call edits. please feel free to accept it or not, right? So it's, I mean, up to you, but this is what I think, right? So you want to, keep in mind that whoever is reviewing your abstract for, critique, they have to be critical. They cannot be all flowery, right? So don't take it to heart, take it to your advantage. The more critiqued review will actually help you polish your abstract and write up much more. So I would end with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Asif. I would just add a couple of sentences to that. I completely agree with what Asif said. I think it is a process, and I think never be afraid of being criticized. Otherwise, you're not going to become somebody. You're not going to learn stuff. You have to leave your ego behind. Look at the criticism and see how you can improve things. The goal of at least, I believe that what we try is to increase the quality of your work. And basically, Dr. Asif is completely right that when I look at my writings the next day, I don't believe that I wrote that document. So many mistakes, so many disjointed sentences and paragraphs, and then do it again. And then next morning I find some more mistakes. My mentor, I never forget, and I give you message that all the times, is that writing is rewriting, 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 infinite rewriting. There's always room for improvement, but then you don't have to be obsessive and compulsive. You have to stop somewhere. So I think it's a process you will learn.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shad, and thank you very much, Dr. Asif, for these valuable mentoring tips. We cannot believe that. I mean, you guys, every morning, you look at your grant applications or abstracts, or we just think that only applicants are going through this.
No, that is not true, Fauzia. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, and with this, I would like to invite if any of the participants, thank you very much for joining us. If anyone has question, please come up.